Welcome back to the Kerouac Project of Orlando for the fourth installment of the Kerouac Project of Orlando Book Club. And today we are going to be discussing, at long last, William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch. My name is John King. I'm a board member of the Kerouac Project of Orlando, and I'm also the host of the Drunken Odyssey podcast. And I'm joined by my good friend and publisher, Matt Peters of Beating Windward Press.
Hello there.
So, yeah, this has been a bit of a journey. And your theory that reading all of these books in sequence would make Naked Lunch read differently, I think has certainly proven true in my case.
Good. I'm glad one of my theories panned out. Since I didn't get the PhD in literature and didn't want to write the thesis, I just say stuff.
Well, in my defense, my thesis was not on Naked Lunch. As it is, I feel like when I earned my PhD, my professors just saw me playing in the wilderness, and they're like, I kind of know some of what you're talking about. Just make sure it makes sense. And then, they yelled at me when it didn't, and then arguments ensued, and then eventually it made sense. So
they graduated me to get rid of me.
I'm sure that's true of at least half of all students everywhere. So yeah, this made a lot more sense to me in my first reading, and I'm going to read a little introduction here. So when I read this book in my 20s, I didn't mind that it made so little sense in terms of linear narrative or even in terms of nonlinear narrative. What has changed is that I have more skills and background to eat Naked Lunch with. And there is
I see what he did there.
Yeah. And there's the metaphorical nature of the narrative. William S. Burroughs wrote about the self-transformations of human beings who discover they are homosexuals, whose consciousnesses are transformed by non-standard sexual experiences. And then there's the consciousness transformation of drug use. And since both arenas of human experience were criminal in his time, the transformation from upper middle class medical student to sexual and medical outlaw also radically defined Burroughs as an outsider. Or from another vantage point, Burroughs concluded that once we dispense with superficial distinctions, all human beings are outsiders. Daniel Handler once told me that he's never met a sane person.
Yeah, I agree with that. Most people, when you get to know them, we're all just acting like sane human beings, and everybody, like you become friends with somebody and then you get the list of what's wrong with them.
Sane is a truly relative term.
It's can you behave yourself in public is sanity. That's all sanity is. And sometimes there's not enough energy in the world to behave properly in public.
I think we both fit that description. Hence our brilliant idea that talking about Naked Lunch in a public forum is a great idea. So Naked Lunch dramatizes such transformations in a dazzling, epic nightmare. Reading the book this time, I felt myself invigorated until the chapter called Islam Incorporated and the Parties of Inner Zone, more than halfway through the book, when I felt the first tingle of exhaustion. This is not a criticism of Burroughs' style. If I understand Burroughs correctly, he wanted to exhaust himself and his readers. He didn't want to come this way again, in this way again. Self-transformation can be exhausting in its existential trials. The book is repetitious at times, echoes of its own experience. The book has plenty of life, but is trying to break you, not to tell you about transformation, but to make you transform to read the book. There was no other way. And there's a bit kind of early on where the author, and I can't remember I think this would have been our narrator who occasionally shows up doing a first-person narration. I don't know that we ever get his name other than he isn't William Lee.
Yeah, he talks about William Lee as a character.
So our narrator, who on rare occasions does report in first person, says...
Yeah, he says gentle reader a lot.
In this bizarre 18th century turn. Gentle reader, the ugliness of that spectacle buggers description. Who can be a cringing, pissing coward, yet vicious as a purple-assed mandrill, alternating these deplorable conditions like vaudeville skits? Who can shit on a fallen adversary who, dying, eats the shit and screams with joy? Who can hang a weak, passive, and catch his sperm in mouth like a vicious dog? Gentle reader, I fain would spare you this, but my pen hath its will, like the ancient mariner. O Christ, what a scene is this? So we could say, this is willfully perverted and, I think if William Burroughs had a more straightforward life and more normal experiences, like if that's who he was, like I think he would have been maybe happier not writing A Naked Lunch. Naked Lunch was the book he had to write in order to make his self cohere.
He definitely, not that I ever knew him, but reading his biography and watching videos and reports and people talking about him, he definitely seemed much more comfortable with himself and knew who he was and what he was doing. He was more confident and self-assured. Like he stopped trying to write for the public and just was like, I'm writing this and they can do whatever they want with it. He does say in the deposition, the testimony concerning a sickness, which is one of the many introductions and appendices and things that go along with the book, since Naked Lunch treats this health problem, the health problem of junk, it is necessarily brutal, obscene, and disgusting. Sickness is often repulsive, details not for weak stomachs. Certain passages in the book that have been called pornographic were written as a tract against capital punishment in the manner of Jonathan Swift's Modest Proposal. These sections are intended to reveal capital punishment as obscene, barbaric, and disgusting, and the disgusting anachronism that it is. As always, the lunch is naked.
Yeah. So, I think your plan worked out remarkably well. I'm getting so much more out of Naked Lunch. In fact, I wanted to make sure that our conversation today was challenging. So, because I understood the book so well, I figured I would make it interesting by dropping LSD 93.
That's irresponsible.
No, that's fine.
You're going to ruin your own show.
Well, what was irresponsible was giving it to you when you weren't looking.
That's why you wanted to go to Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Jumping Jesus on a pogo
I
stick.
really wouldn't worry about it too much, though, because I'm not feeling anything. I think it actually isn't going to work. Naked Lunch has 23 chapters, or if we include the preface, which is at the end of the book, it has 24 chapters, like Homer.
Nope. No. Burroughs said it does not have chapters. There are no chapters, and there's no point in taking a bit of the text and putting it at the top of a section as a chapter.
Yes, but he also railed against control, so I'm not letting him control my reading of Naked Lunch.
Compromise and call them sections?
Well, Homer called his sections books.
That's because he didn't have to lay it out and print it.
No. So, there's another writer who really favors novels with 24 chapters. That John King fellow, he's really brilliant. All right. So what was your experience like this time around?
It had been so long since I'd read Naked Lunch. I was like, oh, I don't remember this part. Oh, it was a lot of, I had vague impressions of pieces of the book and scenes of the book. Like I remembered the characters. I remembered AJ. I remembered Dr. Benway. I remembered the vigilante and things. But the actual, again, it made much more sense this time, which tends to happen when you read something for the second or third time. But it had been 25, 30 years since I read it the last time. I still enjoyed it, like all the bits of chaos and the turns of phrase and the funny little just weird observations that, completely taken out of context. I know I had one of them in here. something like you just get these weird lines like, gentle reader, we see God through our assholes in the flashbulb of orgasm. And you're just like, I don't think anybody's ever put those words together in that order before. And then it's just sort of if you get rid of the seeing God through our assholes, it's basically like, orgasm is this moment of serene enlightenment or at least serene, dopamine high where everything seems right in the world. It's just unique ways of saying it. Dare I say, to piss myself off, close to poetry. Obscene poetry, but that's the way I like my poetry. Not beautiful, but messed up like that.
Well, at times there are moments where I don't know what the point of the words are. And they seem to hold together musically, semiotically, like I don't exactly know what's going on. For example, in the preface, he's making excellent points, and he's talking about his process and his theories of writing and his practice of writing, and then it just blends into narrative, and I'm like, wait, we're back in the story, or we're back in
where does the preface stop and the story start? Where does the appendix stop and start? And it's parts of these things that they're labeled as outside the novel, but they're very much inside the novel. That's not a novel.
And there are, some chapters, chunklets. That was one word I came up with.
Chunklets.
There was a
routines,
chunklet.
Actually, is what he would call them.
But the routine.
Let's spend 2 hours just discussing what we're going to call them.
Some of them don't have routines, and others have multiple routines. So I think that is a misleading way to look at it.
Again, I'm wrong. You're right. Let's just move on. Going to your parents' house for dinner again.
There are, I mean, you're in, you edit books. And
yes.
Let's imagine that Burroughs wanted to be published by Beating Windward. There would probably be maybe some to go like, all right, some of these chapters seem really fragmentary and short. Others seem longer, but also seem to have distinct sections that should be their own chunklets.
It wouldn't even get that far with me, I don't think, if it was coming to me to be published as an editor, because I would want to be able to understand it on first read. I wouldn't want to put it down and go, what the hell was that? Which is typically what happens with a lot of his books. When I first started reading his work, I was always looking for, well, what's the point, or what's the story? And I'd get to the end and go, what? Huh? Like I just was hanging on for dear life to get to the end, so all of it would make sense. And finally I learned it doesn't do that. But as an editor, I'd be like, this isn't for me. It's awesome, but it's not for me, unless I just really liked was having fun and playing with the language, but I don't think I actually would have published it. And, looking into it, the editor at Olympia Press really only published it because it stirred up a controversy when they were publishing excerpts of it in literary journals. The literary journals were getting hit with obscenity, trials and being shut down, and their literary journals were being seized. And that's because he had rejected it twice before, the editor at Olympia Press. And he's like, oh, now I'm interested. Send it to me. But they did it. He said, get me the manuscript in 2 weeks. And they got the book out on the shelves in a month, which is insanely fast, which is why the first edition had so many errors in it, because rushing it.
Skid marks.
But it was totally a financial, like, oh, this is causing controversy. Let me sell it. Let me publish it to cash in on it.
And that was a French press, yeah?
Yeah, it was an English language press, but it was operating out of France. It's the same press that did, it did a lot of, it did Henry Miller's work. It did the original story of O. It did all sorts of books that were just too outside of the mainstream and acceptable society. that was his goal, was like producing, outlier material or things that weren't for the modern sensibilities, which makes you wonder why he rejected the first two versions of it. Might have been how profane and overtly homosexual it was.
Well, the history of that press, um, kind of cosmopolitan. And, Henry Miller's gross enough. And then like William S. Burroughs, it's like, oh no, there's a new sheriff in town for just how uncouth the writing could be.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun of it. That's part of the allure of it is, oh my God, he said that. And it's deliberately meant to be shocking. And a lot of the turns and phrases are, the fun of it for me is almost like, I'm a elementary school kid and, oh, he said, but, something like that.
But with
he said, but.
But Burroughs also often has a real vernacular delivery, so that some of the like obscene and weird things he's saying, like none of the language is off the shelf, but it feels familiar so much of the time. And then you realize, wait, I think he just said something really nasty there.
Or he'll take a common phrase and then, flip it around. I just marked one of those and now I'm not going to be able to remember where it was. Nope, I found it.
Just highlight the whole book.
Yeah. Our backs are against the wall, gentlemen. Our very cocks are at stake. The only thing that stands out of that as different is, instead of our very lives are at stake, it's our very cocks are at stake. And that kind of thing.
I found the book funnier and also more sad than the first time I read it. Probably because I'm understanding it a lot better.
Yeah, it's not... This whole book, so for students that have a problem with show versus tell, the whole book is telling you one thing and showing you something else. The whole book is glorifying divergent sex acts and death sex acts and crazy drugs and bizarre. He's inventing new drugs. They're smoking and eating anything that might get them high. They're doing all sorts of crazy sex acts involving hanging and sleeping with aliens and all sorts of stuff. And the book seems to be glorifying it. But when you look at the characters and their consequences of those actions and the suffering and the desire to get away from it and break free from all of it, he's telling you it's great, but showing you it's horrible, which then makes the whole thing a moral, it's a moral lesson where, it's saying that all this stuff is horrible and degrading and, very much railing against junk and being a junkie. I mean, he relapsed continuously throughout his life, but he very much didn't like heroin and junk and doing drugs. And the whole thing is very much, an after school special with, don't do drugs, kids, because the mugwump will hang you and fuck you up the ass, is what he's saying. You might enjoy that orgasm, but it's horrible.
And you might be dead.
Well, sometimes. There was that weird threesome. So I keep telling, there's this weird threesome where it's a male, female threesome. And the first guy gets hung and killed, but then comes back to life and takes over the body of the second guy. And then, or when the girl hangs the second guy to get off on him, then the first guy possesses the second guy, and then they go in, like the second guy in the first guy in the second guy's body and the woman go off and have a nice relationship. It was like, what the hell? Like trying to figure it out. I don't even remember what made me talk about that.
There are 3 different hangings with sexual components.
Only 3?
At least 3.
At least 3.
And
I can read about one of them.
That's all right. The
I marked it.
And I think partly that's what leads to the exhaustion is like, all right, 3 different hangings. 2 of them I think are in back-to-back chunklets. So it feels like back in the 90s when jazz CDs were exciting to me, I would get these old bop records or CDs, and they did this annoying thing. I found it annoying because I just would have played my CD. But they would add all of these additional tracks that were alternate takes. So you'll listen to a song and then 10 minutes later, you're hearing the song again on the album, but it's an alternate take.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if there were a second CD with alternate takes in the same one, like maybe there would be a rare moment where I'm like, let me check out the alternate takes.
Yeah.
But as a listening experience, it was, kind of eroding.
And which is different than a remix, because remixes, it's at least different enough that you're like, okay, this has a bit of the core song that I like, but is different enough to be a different song. But, just other versions of them. Sometimes you're like, well, what? Okay, this is a less good version of the one that I like.
This is the version they didn't go with. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the stuff we decided not to show you. Like, well, why are you showing it to us now? So you feel a lot of because there's a lot of recycling. Burroughs is one of the great recyclers of material and turns of phrases. There's lots of things where you're like, yes, you've described it that way 3 times. I got the point. That happens a lot. So yeah, that's part of it that gets exhausting. Oh, we're doing this again.
And yet, infuriatingly, there are other bits that are like brand new and weird and expansive surrounding the repetitious bits, so that the part of you and me that might go, yeah, I think I'm done. I don't need to actually get to the end of the book, even though we're stubborn.
But there's going to be something new. Like after the repeated bit, there's going to be this, oh, this is different. This is cool. Now we're going to have a whole different medical experiment or a whole different pseudoscientific conspiracy that happens. Because all of that stuff is in this book, is in here too. I didn't mean to get back to my points, but the medical and scientific and pseudoscientific jargon and theories and talk from both Junkie and Queer and a little bit from Inner Zone is just amped up. It's like Naked Lunch is turned to 11. It's like the stuff from Junkie and Queer is just cranked up. So now it's really bizarre science and theories and medical. Like he's throwing around medical terminology like crazy. Mm-hmm. Like we understand what all this is. It's one of these books you have to go and read with a dictionary to be like, okay, what the hell is this? And not just because it's older language, but he's writing in different language. Yeah, technical language, different languages, mixing Spanish, German, French. There's all sorts of stuff in here. And again, I think I completely lost the point, the train of thought we were on. Well, which is perfect for this book.
Well, the Drunken Odyssey isn't on train tracks; it's adrift in the sea.
Then why am I wearing this shock anklet?
So, so there's a section called AJ's annual party, and you're like, okay, what's the party? And we're introduced.
It's a party.
We're introduced to this international celebrity porn star, maybe / two bitch, who shows a crazy movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, I'm reading a book, watching a movie now, like a mystery science theater experiment.
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking of a different party. AJ's at the different party, but I was thinking of the different party.
And it's like, okay, but who's AJ? He's there at the party, but then like much later in the book, our journalist narrator kind of gives us a dossier on AJ. It's like, oh, here's who he is. And it's like,
well, that's what you do in writing, John. You give a little bit of a hint to make people go, oh, what's that? You raise a question so that they will read on to find the answer. But in this book, yeah, it's like, here's somebody you should know. And you're like, I have no clue who this guy is.
It's back ass words. And yet you are exactly right. It's, he seeds that information, and then there is a payoff. A lot of times there is a payoff for all these random things that you come across. Some of it becomes clearer later, which, okay,
some of it.
It's not the way we're supposed to write a book, but on the other hand,
well, that was part of his point too. because he did know how to write a book, which is the nice thing about reading Junkie and Queer and even Interzone, because you can see he could do this straight, for lack of a better term. He could
do
follow the rules, as we tell our students. Show us you can follow the rules before you break the rules, right? He can do it. He is deliberately choosing not to do it.
Yes.
Maybe.
No, I think it's a choice that he made, but it was a choice founded in some deep part of himself where, like, all right, if someone paid him to write Junkie Part 2.
Well, that was Queer, but yeah.
You know, like if there was a paying gig involved, like maybe he would have tried to keep writing traditional books, but if he's writing for himself.
Well, yeah, he got screwed over on Junkie. So he was gay, so outcast from society. He was a junkie and a criminal, so outcast from society. He was socially awkward, so outcast even from the outlier societies, right?
Right. Among his beatnik friends, it's like he looks like a narc.
Yeah, and he's, so it makes perfect sense that trying to be, you know, the established literary, I'm going to do it, you know, he's saying fuck you to the literary establishment and traditional publishing and all of that as well. Like, fuck you, I'm going to do, you know, I'm not going to play by your rules. Like, you've so excluded me from your society. Why should I continue to play by your rules if you don't want me in your society? You know, so very much giving me the finger, literally.
So shockingly, I found myself getting used to the book.
Yeah. You can get used to anything. Most obscene thing I ever did stand still for. What lines from the book?
Yeah, I think it is funny how if you're a prude reading this and getting upset, suddenly there's the voice of the prude in the book saying the kind of dumb thing you would be saying. So it's like, he's on to me.
Yeah, I'm playing right into his hand.
So a lot of the book involves in medias res.
In the middle of the action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the middle of something.
Yes. The action.
So, yeah, there was a decision made to put Hauser and O'Brien as the last chunklet.
Yes.
Not including the preface that ends the book, the atrophied preface, which is actually
yes, and
14 pages long.
If you had bothered to read that, so you're talking about starting in medias res, why bother, or why all this waste paper getting the people from one place to another? Perhaps to spare the reader the stress of sudden space shifts and keep him gentle? And so the ticket is bought, a taxi called, a plane boarded. We are allowed a glimpse into the warm, peach-lined cave as she, the airline stewardess, of course, leans over us to murmur of chewing gum, Dramamine, and Nembutal. He's saying, like, yeah, all of a sudden we're just going to be in New York. All of a sudden we're going to be here. Like, he's not, he's skipping over the mundane stuff. Douglas Adams does the same thing or brings up the same thing in the fourth Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. He says, like, yeah, I'm not showing you him brush his teeth. I'm not showing him make his breakfast. Like, these are the things that are just assumed and we move on. Like, we just skip it because it's too tedious to include. I don't know if you had a point, but I hope I didn't just
that was
trash
a
it.
Big lesson for me, actually, early in writing.
It is one of the things students...
Like, write in scene. Okay, well, we could just skip over when he's in the toilet. And
yeah, we don't need to see the alarm clock switch over to 7 o'clock and then play, and then the person turn off the alarm clock and moan and roll over and get up out of bed and sit on the end of the bed and rub their head and
get to the point.
Just get to where they're walking into the bank with a machine gun.
Stop breathing down my neck. I'm coming to that.
Did the introduction or the mention what the ordering principle was for the chunklets?
Just the Hauser and O'Brien part,
No,
or the whole
thing. Wasn't it kind of just randomly
So there,
compiled?
Allen Ginsberg had his order that he thought the chapters should go in, the sections should go in. I think Kerouac had an order. Burroughs kind of had an order he wanted it to go in. They had all these plans and everywhere they wanted it to go. And then Olympia Press was like, it's got to go now. And they kind of tried, like as it was being typeset and printed, Burroughs thought he would have time to order it and then put the pieces in the order he wanted to. And they're like, here's your book, it's done. And he's like, oh. And he's like, it worked. It was like, he's actually, what he eventually comes to enjoy is the deliberate lack of control, or just, throwing things together and seeing how things come out, which is the cut-up method. Don't need to get into yet because he hasn't gotten into it yet. But yeah, the book's order kind of went that way. In the restored text that you've got, the back of it, they're talking about how they were trying to decide, well, do we finally put it in the proper order? And do we finally excise or include the things that should be there or not be there based on what Burroughs had intended? And they're like, but no, then people would be like, well, my favorite scene is gone. My favorite this is gone. And this isn't the right order. And it's like the book has come to be its own thing. And so it just kind of, by chance, this is the order that it goes in. But yeah, you very much get the opening of the book is the main character, the narrator, being, if there is a main character, being followed by a cop and jumping on a train to get away from this cop who's following him, the A train. We know it's the A train. And sitting next to a square ad exec kind of guy, like a normie who wants to be hip, and feeding him all of these routines about all these weird people. And then we pretty much get him realizing that the cops are onto him and he's got to get out of the city. He goes around, he tries to score enough H for a road trip. He buys a car. And then we get this big chunk that is essentially a summary of Junkie, right? Just boom, 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 but in a very Naked Lunch kind of way. It's one of those, like, if you hadn't read Junkie, you get the idea that they're on this big road trip trying to get to Mexico. Junkie, you see it's not that deliberate. They just kind of end up in Mexico. But
that chunklet, by the way, the title, and Start West.
And Start West. Yeah, which is just...
We're already in the middle, like, and. That's the first word of the first chunklet. And. What are we adding to?
Yeah. Queer, I told you. Inner Zone. It's a trilogy, John.
It's a quartet.
It's a trilogy of 4 books. Don't ask. So yeah, but then the Hauser and O'Brien chapter at the end is the cops that caught up with him. We're not exactly sure how. We do know that he's on 103rd Street and Broadway, so he's back in New York City. They've caught up with him. We don't know how he got back to New York. And they try to bust him, and he ends up killing the cops and then falls out of normal reality. I think that's maybe where he becomes an agent and joins Islam Inc., although we don't see his recruitment. But he talks about falling out of space-time and not being accountable for the murder anymore because both the detectives have disappeared from reality as well. He tries to, nothing shows up in the newspaper. He calls the precinct and says he's got a tip for these cops that he's killed. And they're like, oh, we don't have anybody here by that name.
He feels like he slipped into an inclusion of time.
An inclusion of time. Yeah, I know there was some weird way for it. So I went back and I was trying to see in that end and Start West, I'm like, well, where would Hauser and O'Brien be in this? Because it seems to be before, maybe not before they buy the car, but definitely before they leave New York. He seems to do that because the next time you get that narrator, he's saying, I made it to Freeland, which is one of these made-up countries that Burroughs has created, which is where he runs into Dr. Benway, and Dr. Benway's reconstitutional, whatever his hospital is, the Reconstruction Center.
The RC.
The RC, the Reconstruction Center. It says it right there in your notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start getting Dr. Benway's crazy-ass hospital where he's trying to treat people or basically put them under control. Treat them of their freedom and their free will.
Oh, and Yeah, and so that's our first, maybe it's our biggest deep dive into Benway.
Yeah, that's the first time Benway shows up.
Um,
and that is, doesn't matter. We got different versions of the book, so I'm going to tell you a page number, and it's going to mean absolutely nothing to you. Dr. Benway, page 28. Mine just says Benway. Well, yours
page
does
19.
too.
Yep.
Mine's in all caps. Mine's more important than yours.
Well, yours is louder.
Which, hence, more important. I think I'm peeking.
Yeah. Okay. So, and Benway has a lot of theories about how to control people.
And there's questions on, is Dr. Benway a legitimate doctor? He seems to be in trouble with all the different boards of medical science. There was this misunderstanding, you see, and I had to leave.
He's not a legitimate doctor. But
I do believe his purple-ass baboon assistant is a legitimate doctor because she passed the boards.
He's really attached to that purple-ass baboon. Anyway.
We are not making this shit up.
We are mere reporters on the writing of William Burroughs. So here's Benway talking about his theories, or it's a summary of some of his theories of when he was consulting for the country of Annexia. Every citizen of Annexia was required to apply for and carry on his person at all times a whole portfolio of documents. Citizens were subject to be stopped in the street at any time, and the examiner, who might be in plain clothes, in various uniforms, often in a bathing suit or pajamas, sometimes stark naked except for a badge pinned to his left nipple, after checking each paper, would stamp it. Long sentence. On subsequent inspection, the citizen was required to show the properly entered stamps of the last inspection. The examiner, when he stopped a large group, would only examine and stamp the cards of a few. Others were then subject to arrest because their cards were not properly stamped. Arrest meant provisional detention, that is, the prisoner would be released if and when his affidavit of explanation, properly signed and stamped, was approved by the assistant arbiter of explanations. Since the official hardly ever came to his office and the affidavit of explanation had to be presented in person, the explainers spent weeks and months waiting around in unheated offices with no chairs and no toilet facilities. Documents issued in vanishing ink faded into old pawn tickets. New documents were constantly required. The citizen rushed from one bureau to another in a frenzied attempt to meet impossible deadlines. He seems to be writing about America today.
Well, and that was the thing. The whole Benway's reasoning behind that is that it is supposed to make that people feel uncomfortable and that the world is out of control and chaotic so that they will crave control and listen to a leader. Again, very much like today.
So in his many...
So it's not all about sex.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sex...
I totally interrupted you. Sorry. You were about to make a point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably 20% of the book is like the sex stuff, but it's all like radioactive.
Yes. So since we're talking about that, another part that my 19, 20, 21-year-old self, whatever, really liked was just the sheer chaos and destruction and people being wild. And it's this part where it just talks about, it's Benway's hospital, the computer that runs Freeland, like releases all the prisoners for some reason. And then just the world spirals into chaos. They're saying rock and roll adolescent hoodlums storm the streets of all nations. They rush into the Louvre and throw acid in the Mona Lisa's face. They open zoos, insane asylums, prisons, burst water mains with air hammers, chop the floor out of passenger plane laboratories, shoot out lighthouses, file elevator cables to one thin wire, turn sewers into the water supply, throw sharks and stingrays, electric eels and caribou into swimming pools. In nautical costumes, they ram the Queen Mary full speed into New York Harbor, play chicken with passenger planes and buses, rush into hospitals in white coats carrying saws and axes and scalpels 3 feet long, throw parapolitics out of iron lungs, administer injections with bicycle pumps, disconnect artificial kidneys, saw a woman in half with a 2-man surgical saw. They drive herds of squealing pigs into the curb. I don't know what the curb is. They shit on the floor of the United Nations and wipe their asses with the treaties, pacts, and alliances. By plane, car, horse, camel, elephant, tractor, bicycle, and steamroller, on foot, ski, sled, crutch, and pogo stick. The tourists storm the frontiers, demanding with inflexible authority asylum from the unspeakable conditions obtaining in free land. The Chamber of Commerce striving in vain to stem the debacle. Please to be restful. It is only a few crazies who have from the crazy place outbroken. So that just like, and that's just this one moment. It doesn't really tie into the Benway section and his hospital. It's just, I think a lot of his writing is not even segues. It's like just you veer off into something like one thought leads to another. Give me a word here. Tangent, kind of. But it's like he'll be talking and he'll inspire himself and he'll just give you whatever he thinks about and then he'll come back to the point. And a lot of times those, this would be neat, and then he comes back, are where a lot of the really fun bits are.
Well, and, I think the point of the passage you just read is, and this is what happens when we don't control people. And a government, just sounds completely ineffectual in trying to prevent absolute chaos. But yeah, the transition that would make that like a cogent point, maybe, just isn't there. And also, right, he's exaggerating. Maybe.
Oh, everything is everything is exaggerated and really pushed.
So, there's a lot of it where I realize this is not the exact same context, but there's a lot of go with me here where suddenly, the idea changes and we have to figure out, okay, what is the context for this?
And when you think the narrator is bad at that, then you meet Dr. Benway, who is like the king of the tangent. He's everything reminds you. He'll be telling you a story and that'll remind him of somebody and he'll give you their background. And then in giving you their background, he's like, well, I met him through Old Tex. Oh, Old Tex was this guy. And he'll tell you, and you're like 3 tangents deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute. And then he comes back to the point. There's actually towards the end of it, he's interviewing a young doctor to work at the Institute. And the young doctor is like, kind of like, shut up. And Benway calls him on it like, oh, you're brash, for calling Benway on his tangents.
Yeah, well, my friend Blair Hollingsworth, his dad would tell a lot of stories, and his stories were, filled with these obsessive details and like details you don't need for the story, but he needed to get them right somehow to be able to tell the story. And
I don't care what color the car is. Move on.
It took some getting used to, but and you could have a coronary trying to force the story to move faster. But once I realized, but he keeps coming back, right? Like, okay, the parentheses is awfully big here, but then there will be a closing parentheses and then we will come back to the point. So once I got used to that, like it became really enjoyable to hear his stories.
Yeah.
But, so, this is like a true phenomenon for the way some people tell
and he
stories
uses the parentheses
life.
too. Occasionally he'll use the parentheses so that you enjoy it. There actually is one of these bits in the middle of, so one of those little tangents that has nothing to do with what's going on. He's actually, it's in the middle of one of the hanging sex scenes. So there's a hanging sex scene with a mugwump, which the mugwumps are these alien creatures that drink sugar and secrete intoxicating liquids from their penises. But in the middle of this sex scene, he goes off on this tangent, which is not sexual at all, really, I don't think. A vast, still harbor of iridescent water. Deserted gas well flares on the smoky horizon. He's setting the scene. Stink of oil and sewage. Sick sharks swim through black water, belch sulfur from rotting livers, ignore a bloody, broken Icarus. Naked Mr. America, burning fantastic with self-bone love, screams out, "My asshole confounds the Louvre. I fart ambrosia and shit pure gold turds. My cock spurts soft diamonds in the morning sunlight." He plummets from the eyeless lighthouse, kissing and jacking off in the face of a black mirror, glides oblique down with cryptic condoms and mosaic of 1,000 newspapers through a drowned city of red brick to settle in the black mud with tin cans and beer bottles and gangsters in concrete, pistols pounded flat and meaningless to avoid short-arm inspection by prurient ballistic experts. He waits the slow striptease of erosion with fossil loins. And then back to the mugwump having sex with the guy hanging. It's like, wait, like you interrupted a sex scene. It's like, you know, like I had a thought. Shut up and keep moving. Okay.
Yeah.
We have no, I don't have a way out of that. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, is the narrator watching the mugwump scene and then out of the corner of his eye, oh, there's a character like Icarus falling out of the sky. Right. Oh, back to the mugwump and the necrophiliac activity.
Yes. Is it necrophilia if you start having sex with them before they're dead, but you then continue after they're dead? Snuffing situation. Yeah. Okay. Got to get our terms right.
We do.
You're more familiar with this stuff than I am, Harumph. The boy crumples to his knees with a long, oh, shitting and pissing in terror. He feels the shit warm between his thighs. I'm just waiting for you to get to your next point.
So, there's I had this thought. So, there's a chunklet called The Market, which just seemed to have like a whole lot of crazy vignettes. Like maybe this is what you see as you tour the market.
So this is something I've, did you have a point or were you just bringing that up? Because I have a point.
I had a tangent. Let me get my tangent out of the way so that you can focus rather than.
Okay.
So a lot of people are loitering, eating and drinking at something called the Meat Cafe, MEET Cafe, which seems like a really basic name. And it reminds me of at Epcot, there's a place called the Connections Eatery.
Of course, it comes back to Epcot.
Which, of course, well, really, isn't William S. Burroughs the unacknowledged architect of Epcot Center?
It is an international zone, yes.
The back half of the park, to be sure.
Of course, it's the back half of the park.
The evil technocracy, that's the front part of the park. But Connections Eatery, like, it's not the worst spot in the world, but I hate the very idea of it. Like, oh, you go there to connect. It's an eater. Like, it just, to me, semiotically, it feels like, oh, this is the American theme park version of the Meat Cafe.
Without the cool people.
Without the interesting spectacle, yeah.
Okay, characters. Interesting characters.
All right. You had a real point.
I had a real point. I marked it with a little globe illustration because this is world building. So one of the, and I guess I got a long part to read. From reading Burroughs' later works, there seems to be kernels of the story he wanted to tell. I really saw this in Wild Boys, where he's got a plot, like in the middle of Wild Boys, there is the plot for Wild Boys. When you read the back of the book, this is the story you thought you were going to get. It's like he wrote out the outline and then just threw in all this other stuff into the book to fill it up without actually writing the plot that he had. So I think he had lots of these pieces and bits. He'll do the work, like the pre-writing work, but doesn't finish out the traditional narrative. So the market part
This is what I would do.
This
if
is
I were
me.
Square.
This is what I would do. You see, I can do this. This is me as the editor wanting to smack him and be like, "Well, finish the fucking book."
Right. That was a metafictional moment in one of the early books, Junkie or Queer.
Yeah.
He's bragging. Oh, yeah, this is what I should be writing. I'm not writing that bit.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
So
Sorry.
it's like he's just laying out the world with lots of interesting characters, but no main character. It's like this is all setting. And he starts it off with panorama of the city of Interzone. The room seems to shake and vibrate with motion, the blood and substance of many races, Negro, Polynesian, Mountain, Mongol, Desert Nomad, Polyglot, Near Eastern, Indian, races as yet unconceived and unborn, combinations not yet realized pass through your body, migrations, incredible journeys through deserts and jungles and mountains, across the Pacific in an outrigger canoe to Easter Island, the composite city where all human potentials are spread out in a vast silent market. A sluggish river jumping with vicious fish, vast weed-grown parks where boys lie in grass playing cryptic games, not a locked door in the city. Anybody comes into your room at any time. The chief of police is a Chinese who picks his teeth and listens to denunciations presented by a lunatic. Every now and then the Chinese takes the toothpick out of his mouth and looks at the end of it. Hipsters with smooth copper-colored faces lounge in doorways, twisting shrunken heads on gold chains, their faces blank with an insect's unseen calm. Behind them, through open doors, tables and booths and bars and kitchens and baths, copulating couples on rows of brass beds, crisscrossing of 1,000 hammocks, junkies tying up for a shot, opium smokers, hashish smokers, people eating, talking, bathing, back in the haze of smoke and steam. Gaming tables where the games are played for incredible stakes. From time to time, a player leaps up with a disparaging cry, having lost his youth to an old man or become a lata to his opponent. But there are higher stakes than youth and lata, games where only 2 players in the world know what the stakes are. All houses in the city are joined, houses of sod, high mountain Mongols blink in smoky doorways, houses of bamboo and teak, houses of adobe, stone and red brick, South Pacific and Maori houses, houses in trees and riverboats, wooden houses 100 feet long, sheltering entire tribes, houses of boxes of corrugated iron where old men sit in rotten rags cooking down canned heat. Great rusty iron sacks rising 200 feet into the air from swamps and rubbish with perilous partitions built on multi-level platforms and hammocks swinging over the void. This is really getting long. Cooking smells of all countries hang over the city, a haze of opium, hashish, resinous red smoke of yahe, the smell of jungle and salt water and a rotting river, dried excrement and sweat and genitals. Back to the genitals. High mountain flutes, jazz and bebop, one-string Mongol instruments, gypsy xylophones, African drums, Arab bagpipes. The city is visited by endemic violence. Then he goes into talking about the meat cafe and all the different crazy people that work there. He says, followers of obsolete, unthinkable trades, addicts of drugs not yet synthesized. And then he just lists all of these bizarre, crazy people that could be selling all of this stuff. But the whole thing, it's like he's setting a scene that then never has any action, or at least if it did, by the time we get to the meat cafe, maybe the meat cafe was one of those things like AJ. We're introduced to the meat cafe early and then later we get the description of it. But I don't know where the other dot is to connect it.
Well, there's a chunklet called The Examination, in which someone named Carl Peterson is summoned to a doctor who gives him the Blomberg-Stanislawski semen flocculation test. And then after the test, and Carl comes back for his follow-up, and all of this has legal ramifications, right?
Right. Yeah, they're trying to test him to see if he's gay. And if he's gay, he gets locked up, I think.
Yeah.
But he's married. He's not gay. He's never done anything.
And the doctor keeps messing around with him, and trying to persuade him that nothing's wrong. And, all of this is,
routine
and understandable. And obviously, even if you were, even if you've had sex with a man before, well, that doesn't mean you're gay. And
if it was in the army, that was fine.
Which is, like that Chris Rock bit where, he goes, oh yeah, no, if your woman says, if you cheated, just tell me and it'll be okay. And it's like, it's not going to be okay. But also after he takes the test and he comes back to find out how he did, the doctor says, oh no, we didn't give you that test. We gave you a different test.
If you had that test, you'd be in trouble.
And he goes, oh yeah, here are a bunch of pinups. So which one's your type? And he goes,
pinup girls.
Yeah, that one. And he goes, okay, well, these are all transvestites, so that means you're gay. And all of this reminds me of Dr. Benway's ideas.
Yes.
From Anexia. So
also Kafka.
That seems Kafka for so many things, but yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like questioning a hetero person's sexuality is one of Benway's way to destabilize people and make them crave control. So the examination seems to be a doctor actually putting into practice some of Dr. Benway's ideas.
Very much so, yeah.
So, yeah, I can connect those dots. Sometimes we can, sometimes I don't fucking know.
Yeah. And I had mentioned the medical and scientific stuff being jacked up or increased. Also the conspiracy. I mean, I feel like we've touched on it, but the idea that there's a vast conspiracy. William Lee has become an agent. The narrator is an agent, which is like, is it William Lee or not? But Benway's an agent. They were trying to recruit Benway. It seems like most of the main characters are agents for something. All of them trying to either switch allegiances or catch somebody else who's a allegiance of another syndicate. But all the syndicates seem to be after that control of the population, usually through some sort of drug. I mean, we get the black meat, which is the giant centipede meat that's horribly addictive and pleasurable. People trying to synthesize new drugs and ways to control people, which is, again, Burroughs being like, being a slave to heroin sucks. I don't think he liked the lack of control he had over his own desires and actions, on heroin, because he was forced into this. Like, it focused him, but he had to do this thing he didn't want to do. And he couldn't get himself to stop.
In the Chunklet meeting of the International Conference of Technological Psychiatry,
that's one that there's a lot of audio of him reading that section.
Yeah. Dr. Fingers Schaefer, also known as the Lobotomy Kid, is presenting his findings about the complete all-American de-anxietized man.
Yep.
The presentation doesn't go well when the patient who was treated in order to arrive at this status turns into a giant black centipede.
Yeah, his spine basically crawls out of his body as a giant black centipede. And they have to get a flamethrower to try to take care of it.
So, yeah, the black meat is caused by trying to overtreat anxiety.
Well, yeah, and the de-anxietized, I took it as a bit further than anxiety. It was more of like they were trying to just wipe out this guy, like maybe it was the lobotomy reference, but wipe out this guy's entire personality and make him something that, like, oh, we don't want you to, like, personality is just too much of a problem, like dealing with people's personalities. If we could just wipe that out and they're not worried about what we're telling them to do, then we can totally get them to do anything. And that's the thing. Like, you can read this and, like, trying to figure out what it means to you and how you add it all up. John and I probably read very different books.
I think my reading of it is sound, but it is...
And mine is fucked up? Thanks. That's what he's saying.
Fucked up. Not wrong. Just fucked up.
Just fucked up.
No.
He's sleeping on the couch tonight.
It's an open system. It's an open system.
Okay.
So
it's an open world.
in other words, I think my generalizations could take people far with the book. Your generalizations can take people far with the book. On the other hand, whatever sticks in your head when you read it, like, is going to radically affect the way that you deal with all the provocations of the book.
Yeah. What parts, does the sex stick in your head? Does the hanging stick in your head? Do the drugs stick in your head? The first time I read it, it was the drugs that stuck in my head. I'm not gay. I'm not even bisexual. So the eroticism, not that it's particularly erotic, like I appreciated it because it's stuff you don't normally see. It's not the boring crap I had to read in high school, but it didn't excite me the way it does a lot of young people that are trying to figure out their own sexuality, and they've been very sheltered, and they read this and they're like, oh, somebody else fantasizes about having sex with aliens or with boys, or, doing these things, or being isolated only in a society of men or only in a society of women or whatever. I was very much drawn to the drug part of it all when I read it the first time. So that was the part I latched onto. Yeah. This time, I'm not sure probably more of the control, like very much the politics or the social implications is very much what I'm paying attention to.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, imagine that. I'm radicalized. Does that mean I'm radical?
You are radical, but no, not because you're radicalized. All right. Yeah. And we're not going through every single chunklet here because there's a lot. But, oh, by the way, yeah, when the mugwump has sex with the hanging victim, that one.
I just stopped myself from coming back to that.
That chunklet is called Hassan's Rumpus Room.
In case just so you can avoid it.
That should have been the title of one of his novels, Hassan's Rumpus Room.
He might have actually played with that idea. One thing, getting back to, I don't even know what to call it. Getting back to the mechanics of the writing and we've been reading lots of pieces that seem very fractured or random. It reads like insanity and chaos. However, there's this inclusion, particularly in the first chunk of it, where he's trying to orient the reader in the very first chunklet. He includes notes, it sounds crazy, and then this voice will stop and be like, well, this actually means this, and blah, 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 which seems to hint that there's intention and control behind it. One of the things is...
the drug lingo.
The drug lingo especially, yeah. He says he's met the fruit, as he calls him, the fruit square ad exec guy. And so the main character who's about to get off the train is like, I'm going to set him up so I can rip him off later. He says, so I put him on for a sawski and make a meat to sell him some pod, as he calls it. I think that's the guy misunderstanding pot, thinking, I'll catnip the jerk, right? So that's what the main character is thinking. And then it goes, note, catnip smells like marijuana when it burns, frequently passed on the incautious and uninstructed, like unparentheses or closing parentheses. So it's like you get this, and the fruit is thinking, what a character. Wait till I tell the boys at Clark's about this one. And then catnip smells like marijuana. It's a very jarring, and there's those are throughout that very first section.
Like Charles Gray in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, he's Chucky. Don't say it. Don't make me say the chant. I'm brainwashed by Rocky Horror, so my head is already singing the song. But yeah, there's all those notes that seem to interrupt it, and they disappear. You don't get those later. You get parenthetical references, but you don't get it doesn't just literally go, note, this is what this means.
But that does feel a little bit like a primer. Yeah. So
actually, let me see are they in your book too? Your version? I believe they are. Go ahead. I'll wait and interrupt you.
The Dr. Finger Schaefer, when he gives his presentation,
yes,
the guy becomes a centipede.
I waited to interrupt you. There you are.
There we go. He turns into a centipede. There's a chunklet where William Lee is kind of turning into Jello. There are other scenes where
protoplasm.
There's Bradley the buyer who
he gets high on being around junkies, not on doing junk, but just being around junkies.
And he rubs on them for contact, but then that's not enough. So eventually he rubs on them so hard, like he absorbs them.
He turns into a viscous blob of protoplasmic jelly and absorbs the junkies, and then the criminals are disappearing. They finally realize what's going on, and the judge pulls him from the force because he can't do it anymore, and he breaks down because he breaks down like a junkie who's being put into rehab or having an intervention.
Yeah, and he says, I'll polish your shoes with the oil from my nose, but that comes up 2 or 3
several times. Yeah, that phrase, I'll polish your shoes with the oil from my nose, which just makes you go,
like, how oily is my nose today? And it just also, ew. Ew, like, I'm sure that's somebody's kick, but man.
Yeah.
Makes me think of a time when people wore shoes that needed to be polished.